Hello. Today we are going to move on in our unit and look at this concept of midpoint formula. So you will need your notes. You're also going to need this foldable. And if you don't have the foldable, then you probably can just jot down some of these examples on your notes, or if you have another sheet of paper, you could do that. So on the foldable, what I want to do is have this side facing up and see this solid dark line in the center. So it's a really easy foldable. You're going to take the top and fold it down to that center line. So you should see, it should say distance formula or midpoint formula. And you do the same thing. You take the bottom, well actually I'll leave it this direction. Then you can take the bottom and fold it up to the center as well. And so now we've got this foldable. Let me kind of zoom out here a little bit. Now we've got this foldable, that distance formula, and then there are some examples under it. Midpoint formula, and there are some examples under it. So we're going to use this in the next couple of videos. Midpoint formula, this is where we are going to begin. All right, so midpoint formula. Sounds like midpoint or middle. Oops, let me get my camera going here. Ooh. All right, midpoint of something is going to just be the middle of something. So we are dealing with this formula. We're dealing with items on a coordinate plane. See how I have X and Y? I've also got parentheses. Okay, which indicate coordinates. So this formula is useful if you are dealing with coordinates on a coordinate plane. So our formula is, let me kind of add to this. Let's say I have 2 points, x1 and y1, x sub 2 and y sub 2. I want to know the midpoint between those points. Where is the middle? I'm going to take the first x value, add it to the second x value, and divide by 2. Then I need to do the same thing for the y's. I'm going to take the first y value plus the second y value divided by 2. This is simply an average. You have two numbers, you want to find the middle, so you add them up and divide by the number of values. There happens to be 2. So I want you to, formulas are great, but if you don't really understand what they're doing, you're never going to remember this. So midpoint, think middle. If you've got a set of data and you want to find the middle number, one way to do that is to find the average. So on the foldable, if you would open it up, there are some examples. I want you to look at this graph for just a second. So what we're trying to find out here, like I said, is the middle point. And so if you have 2 points, which then means you have 2 ordered pairs, we can use our formula where we add up the x's, divide by 2, add up the y's, and divide by 2. So on these two, we're just going to run through a basic calculation just to make sure we understand how the formula works. So you could label your coordinates if you want. I'm just going to designate this as ordered pair number 1. So I'm going to say x sub 1, y sub 1. And then I'm going to call this ordered pair number 2. So x sub 2, y sub 2. So if I follow my formula, I'm going to add the x's up and divide by 2. So I'm going to take negative 3 plus 7, divide by 2, comma, and I'm going to do the same on the y's, negative 1 plus negative 5, divide by 2. And I'm putting it in a gigantic ordered pair. So I have negative 3 plus 7 is 4. So I'm going to take this one really slow, step by step. Negative 1 plus negative 5 is a negative 6 divided by 2. And then now we can divide them out. So I end up with 2 comma negative 3. Okay? So if I were to graph these original points and the midpoint, it should look something like this, where the midpoint is visually in the middle. So I'd like you to do the second example. So pause this, work through the midpoint formula, and then come back and we'll check. Okay, we should have a +5, comma, -5. Now, sometimes I leave them as fractions. You could do a decimal as long as your decimal terminates. And by terminating, I mean like 10.25, that terminates. 10.33333 repeating doesn't terminate. So I would either do a fraction, or if it's a terminating decimal, that would be fine. Okay, I'm going to stop this video, and then in my next video, we're going to move on to the examples in your notes.